What's up, guys? We are your Young Guns podcast, and unfortunately, the World Juniors has been canceled.
Sad.
We're going to be getting into that shortly. For hockey fans, this year it's been very frustrating. You have the American, whatever variant, whatever you want to call it, that's plagued not only the NHL, but the NHL's participation in the Olympics this year, and now the World Junior Tournament has been canceled. So today we're going to be talking about what happened, the statements that were made, and basically the standouts of this short-lived tournament. And we're going to be looking at assists, goals, save percentage, wins, and yeah. So what are your thoughts essentially on this decision to cancel the whole tournament?
I mean, to be honest, like the reason obviously I understand why they canceled it. It makes sense. Like I get it, but the whole thing that I think everyone was upset about was the fact that like they kind of went at the beginning of before the World Juniors started or during the World Juniors they were like, oh, we're gonna cancel all the women's tournaments, right? And so they canceled all the women's tournaments. And people were like, "What the fuck? Like, why are you canceling the women's tournaments? Like, what the hell? Can't you just postpone it?" And so everyone got under the impression that okay, like at least the World Juniors are going to go on, right? Because of the fact that everything's going on in the world with the whole like the pandemic and everything. People are like, okay, at least we have the World Juniors to look forward to. And I think the problem with the World Juniors and the reason why it got canceled, I think it's because of the fact that the IIHF and Hockey Canada did just a bad job in general of running it. Like I don't think they did a good job of hosting the tournament. I don't think they did a good job of setting up the tournament in a way that was going to prevent a situation where COVID cases were going to happen and games are going to have to be canceled. And so that's the problem that I think happened in terms of the World Juniors. And it's unfortunate because there was some really exciting games. There was a lot of teams that looked really fun to watch. Slovakia was one of them that I was really excited to look at and watch them. And obviously, a lot of players came out and shared their opinions on that too. But the thing is this: I think that it was a poorly run tournament. I don't think they did the proper measures and they did it the proper way. And I think that's the reason why the tournament got canceled. But hopefully, they can find a way to postpone it, and hopefully they can look for an alternative solution for not only the men's tournament but the women's tournament as well.
And Chris, what are your thoughts on the cancellation of
Well,
this
it's not
tournament?
not even just the tournament. I would say even some like the NHL games or even the Olympics. Like you have the NFL who has been going on without a hiccup. Like there's maybe
Well,
been
there's been
a
a few
few
hiccups.
postponed games,
Yeah.
but I mean, especially like the World Juniors. Why is it not like a bubble? If
Yeah.
everybody's negative, where did this COVID case come from? You know.
So I'm gonna
Yeah.
read out like essentially the games that were originally forfeited and like what happened. So it starts off with a couple of days ago, USA forfeits their match against Switzerland because of two positive tests. Then the following day, you have um, one Czech player who tests positive overnight on December 28th. Therefore, there was no close contact, and they had to follow the uh, IIHF's COVID protocols. So the whole entire Czech team had to do a 24 mandated team quarantine, like the states. So the Czech were
My
oh,
question
sorry,
was is like
yeah,
where did it come from?
Well, I
They
think
don't want to disclose who it is, but where
it's
if
confidential.
I'm
well,
assuming they're in a hotel like how the NHL bubble or NBA bubble was, and besides the players and the staff for the teams being there, and they all were tested negative multiple times, where could this have came from?
there was a room. The rumor
There's
was,
also fans that were watching
yeah,
the
but
games.
that's what they were saying. The rumor was is that because of the fact that they were in a hotel room, they were in a hotel room with the general public. Like they weren't in a hotel. They would go to the restaurant where the general public would be eating. They would go to walk outside, go to the elevator. The general public would be there using a regular elevator. So they weren't. It's not as if they were like in their own bubble. They were exposed to the outside world to some extent, right? And so what happened was is and apparently there was a wedding in that hotel as well that happened
See,
during the World
it's just
Juniors.
it wasn't strict enough. That's what I think.
That's it.
Interesting.
It
But
wasn't
let me
strict
let me
enough, but
get
that's
back
what I
to
think.
like
that's the
what I was
mistake they
saying
made.
before. So
Yeah,
Czech was assessed a 1-0 forfeit loss to Finland. Um, then
yeah.
Russia had to forfeit their match because of a COVID case as well on their team. So Slovakia was given the a win, and essentially all three teams that lost 1-0 essentially. And then the following day after the cancellation was announced, another five positive tests from the day before at the World Juniors Championship were announced. Uh, so if the decision was not made to cancel the tournament, there would have been more forfeited games, which makes no sense. And you would have seen a lot of good teams not qualify for the quarterfinals. And essentially, a last additional note is that the five positive players came from teams such as Canada, Sweden, Slovakia, uh, and Germany.
And that was today. That was like that they confirmed that today that
Yeah.
there was gonna be positive tests coming out today. But again, like even for the Olympics, right? And obviously we're talking about the World Juniors, but just talking about the Olympics too, because that's what this video is about too. Like even for the Olympics, I think the problem was in general. I think what happened was is that this whole pandemic and the way everything's gone on, I think it's taken a toll on everybody, right? It's taken a toll on sports teams. It's taken a toll on this whole situation. And so because of that, I think it's forced teams like the NHL, leagues like the NHL, and obviously the IIHF to kind of change their ways around. Do I necessarily agree with the players not going to the Olympics? I mean, listen, if they could have found a way to do it, it would have been fun. Do I think that they should have canceled the World Juniors? I mean, listen, it's one of those things where you already started the tournament, and yes, obviously the forfeit games were bad, and they should never forfeited the games. I think if the World Juniors, because of the fact that the NHL was postponing games in Canada anyways, I think the IIHF should have communicated with the NHL and found a better way to you know, not cancel the games, but postpone the games to a later date and just move the final up accordingly. And the reason for that is I think it would have made the tournament more interesting, and at least we would have been able to get the tournament done. Because as much as as much as the tournament, whatever, as much as there was COVID cases, all four players that apparently tested positive from these teams all came out as asymptomatic, right? And again, we can have the debate of asymptomatic or not asymptomatic, whatever. But the whole point is that these guys came in as asymptomatic, and you know they weren't really sick. Number one, and number two, there was only four players out of 250 that tested positive. So you're telling me you couldn't find a way to have a situation where these guys still couldn't play games? Like, why did the whole Team USA have to quarantine because of one guy who had a roommate that tested positive, right? Like, it to me, it didn't really make sense. And so that's why I think the whole tournament in general wasn't run properly. And I think, the fact that the general public was there, I don't think made it any better for, the organizers, or made it any better for the players, and for that matter, to not be exposed. I think they were more likely to get exposed.
Essentially, it was doomed from the start, and we have a couple comments to reinforce, um, people's displeasure with the announcement of the cancellation of the World Juniors tournament. Before I name the people and their quotes. Germany went on the ice during their what was supposed to be their game against Canada, and they just took pictures together, and they were completely devastated, just crying. And a key thing about this that's really unfortunate is that, yeah, a lot of players have been already drafted in this tournament concerning NHL teams, and a couple of them are going to be drafted regardless of this tournament, in this year's draft or next year's draft. But there's some players that this is like their biggest opportunity, the biggest stage to prove to scouts that they're eligible to participate in an NHL draft or to receive a contract at the NHL or AHL level. So um, they were stripped away from that. So anyone that was born in 2002, that this was like their last shot essentially, knowing that they were not going to be drafted, or there's a small chance that they might be drafted, this really stung for them, and I feel really sad for
Is it not
those
being
people.
rescheduled for like maybe during the summer? Or...
That's the rumor. The rumor is that they're going to
Yeah,
try to reschedule it for the summer, but there's nothing confirmed yet.
I don't think it's gonna happen. I think they're just gonna move on and forget about this, unfortunately. So Finland's world junior coach Antti Pennanen or Pennanen, he stated that he was the following: I am angry because this was not a COVID problem, but the problem was that this was a poorly run tournament. It says a lot about the state of the IIHF. So basically, what Luca was saying before that, poorly run tournament from the start, it was doomed to begin with, especially, how strict the policies and restrictions are in Canada. That's where the tournament took place in Alberta, Red Deer. So you're playing with fire there. And then Sweden's World Junior goalie, Kale Klang, he said that he feels completely absurd. You're mostly in shock. Dreams were extinguished in a second. Feels actually completely sick. We could compete in last year's World Juniors, but not this year's, which is very strange. And then to close off the statements made from members of the World Junior tournament, you have
What was the
um,
difference between last year and this year? Is
Well,
there
we're in
a
a
last
bubble
difference?
last year.
Yeah, last year they had a bubble and there was like a lot more restrictions and no, but like basically, essentially, the players like weren't allowed to leave their hotel rooms. You go to your hotel.
Well, that's how it should be.
Yeah, but that's what it was. So they like that's what it was last year. They would go, stay in their hotels, do what they have to do, right? And then if they had to go to practice, they'd go to the arena, go to practice, come back, go to straight, stay in the hotel, not move. Like obviously, they had their own like little bubble. So like if they wanted to go to like eat, they have like their own little dining room where it's just the team and nobody else,
And then
right?
the
So
last
they had
quote.
like a bunch of shit just for them. But the problem was is that this year, because I guess the IIHF read it as okay, they're going to be fine. They didn't bother to put a bubble, and so they got exposed to the general public, and then COVID cases started happening, and then they had to cancel games.
So the last quote comes from Simon Latkosi. If I'm not mistaken, he's the Czech Republic
No,
goaltender,
he's
right?
the Slovakia goalie.
Slovakian, okay. So he stated the following: I would like to say a few words about this World Juniors tournament. It is a joke, nothing else. Do you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, nothing else is true. How is this even possible? Every single player has been preparing for this tournament for days, months, even the years. This is the best part of the junior hockey. I was so excited to play at this tournament because I know how many people watch that and how great experience it is. Obviously, the English is not great, but I applaud him for trying. It is a celebration of hockey. The best players at one place all together. Christmas time without the families? Question mark. Hard to imagine, right? We give everything we can to hockey every day, even spend the biggest holidays without our families. And I can tell you one thing: it is hard. I came here and tried to do my best, and this is how it is done. This goes on IIHF. They completely underestimated this tournament. The organization from the first day was terrible. I felt like I am participating at some basic youth hockey tournament. We all know that COVID is the main problem nowadays, but this has nothing similar with COVID. Um, what else does he say here? All of us know that last year the World Junior Championship took place as well as in Canada, same city, same purpose, and it was to avoid of COVID and have fun of hockey. Obviously, again, English is not the best. Uh, Even though there was a team Germany that had a couple of guys tested positive, but the other players still could play, and we all know that COVID was more dangerous last year. Last year we spent whole tournament in bubble just at our hotel and at the rink. It was crazy, but it worked. The people who worked for us were in the bubble with us during all tournament. They did not go home at all. When I compare it to this year, we came a couple days early to be quarantined at our hotel rooms to make sure that there is no COVID after traveling. Great. Everything we went through, no COVID cases after traveling. So where is the problem? And so that's basically what he said. So those are the three statements made uh, from members of the World Juniors tournament.
I mean, I can't look.
They have a point.
They have a point, and I think that that's the ultimate thing that I think upsets a lot of people, especially the fans, but most importantly the players too. these guys dream of playing in the World Juniors, right? When you think about like when you talk to a kid who plays hockey, right? Especially a young guy, my brother plays hockey, you know, you ask them like, oh, what's your dream? Like what's the number one thing you want to do? And a lot of them answer with, I want to play in the NHL. But a lot of them also answer, they're like, I want to play for my country and I want to win a gold medal for my country. And a lot of these guys, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? You don't get another chance to play for your country because sometimes, either A, you don't end up being good enough, or sometimes you're too old, or whatever the case may be. And so a lot of these guys that came into the World Junior tournaments, especially from the smaller countries, the smaller hockey countries like, Austria or Switzerland, whatever, these kids, they work their asses off. They work to become the best in their countries. They work to do this. And just to get all of that taken away from them because of a poorly run tournament is unfortunate. It's unfortunate for the kids, especially because these are the guys that work so hard for this. These are the guys that put their time, put their effort, make the sacrifice to be where they are today. And it sucks. And it sucks as well because, even for the women's tournaments, right? The women's World Junior tournament got canceled before it even started. And, even for them, like, these people, they put their time and effort, they put all their energy into this, into these tournaments to try to be the best and to go and play for these tournaments and live their dream and make it come true. And just to have that taken away from them for whatever reason, it's so unfortunate. And I feel so bad for the players. I feel bad for the three guys that spoke out, the players that spoke out, and even the coaches, because they work so hard for this. And not only that, I think the fans too. The fans deserve uh, a lot of uh, praise, or a lot of what's the word, like a lot of
Respect,
respect as well, because at the end of the day,
recognition.
like, that's it. They need a lot of recognition as well, because the fans come to watch these games, right? Like, yes, they didn't sell out arenas, but that's because of COVID and whatever. But there were still 1,000 people going to games. There were still 2,000 people going to games. Canada averaged almost 4,000 people at one of their games. Like, people want to watch the World Juniors. People on TV want to watch the World Juniors. Like, the World Juniors is one of the most popular tournaments during the holidays.
Especially when
Like,
the NHL
everybody.
was shut down and the only thing we could have watched regarding hockey was
Was the
this
world?
tournament.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, everybody watches the World Juniors, right? Even if you don't watch hockey, like, a lot of people watch the World Juniors because it's the only thing that's on, number one, and number two, like, it's during the holidays, right? People just want to sit down and do stuff, so people sit down and watch the World Juniors. So, like, it's one of the most loved tournaments ever, especially in hockey. And so, like,
Well,
it sucks. It just really, really sucks that they canceled it. Honestly, I was very disappointed. I was very sad, but I understand it and I get why they did it. But I also think that the IIHF as a whole is part to blame for the reason why the reason why this whole thing got canceled.
well, especially when there's undrafted players and stuff, and there's fans from teams that are like bottom tier, and they know that they're gonna be drafting in a top 10 spot at this year's draft, right? Or just in general, they look forward to looking at the potential prospects that are going to be either the face of their franchise or at least part of the
Or even the
success
ones
that
that are
comes.
currently on their teams.
Yeah, exactly. So you want everyone wants to see the progression of their favorite prospects that could potentially be on their team or that are on their team already. So being stripped away from that as a fan, it's very unfortunate. But moving on to the standings as they stand right now, how they were left off. In Group A, we had Finland that played 3 games with 3 wins and 9 points. Canada with 2 games in second place with 6 points. Germany had an overtime win and a loss in 2 games, so they had 2 points. Czech Republic in fourth place with 3 games played, 2 losses, one overtime loss, so 1 point. And Austria, 2 wins in fifth place and 2 losses. Then you have Group B,
Austria had 2 wins.
No,
two
2 losses.
losses.
They lost both their
Okay,
games.
I
Yeah,
was
so
like,
they
But,
finished with zero
before
points.
you move on to Group B, I just want to say something. These standings that they have right now, okay? If they decide to postpone the tournament,
it's
are
gonna
they just gonna
restart.
are they gonna restart it, or they're gonna start? Because to me, it doesn't really make sense, right? Because then these standings mean nothing. Because essentially, you just play 3 games for nothing. Because even if you postpone it, right? Even if they do start from scratch, you what? So Finland went 3-0. Like, what? Like, Finland's gonna be like, okay, if we go to the next World Juniors and we lose, let's say we lose our first 3 games or our first 2 games, whatever it is, or the groups get changed or whatever, like Finland's gonna be like, well, we were hard done by because we
I
earned
don't think it's gonna
ourselves.
be done, man. I don't think it's gonna be postponed because they're gonna have to try to squeeze it before the NHL draft. And if they do it during like the NHL playoffs, for example,
They
you
could,
know,
they could do that. They actually could do that.
I don't know how that's gonna work,
They could
you
do it
know.
after the draft.
That too,
But that
or
doesn't
they
make any
do it.
sense because there's people that are basically
Oh yeah,
dependent
actually,
on
it
the
does. He's right.
draft.
He's right. It doesn't make sense. They'd have to do it before the draft. So the draft, let's say the draft
Why do
is
they have
like
to do it before the draft?
because
Because some of these guys that need to be
a lot of
drafted,
scouts watch these players during this tournament to decide if they're going to draft them or not, right?
yeah, forget the ones that are already
So,
drafted. There's a lot of notable names that haven't been drafted
but
yet.
they may just not even care because a lot of these guys too, like if you think about it too, like guys like Shane Wright, whatever, all these all like Nemec, whatever, all these guys that are to go in the top 5 or top 10,
Shane
whatever.
Wright is
Like
going
these guys
fifth or
already play in
sixth,
normal
bro.
leagues anyways, so they're gonna end up like uh they're going to end uh producing in their own leagues anyway. So it won't really matter too much if the World Juniors happens after the draft and before the draft.
Okay, so moving on to
So
to Group B, we have Sweden with 2 games played, 2 wins, so 6 points. United States second place, 2 games, 1 win, 1 loss, to 3 points. Switzerland in third place, 2 games played, 1 win, 1 loss, tied with United States in second. You have Russia tied with both in fourth actually because they played 3 games, 1 win, 2 losses, and Slovakia in last, tied with Russia, 3 games played and 3 points. So essentially, yeah, these points and the standings don't really mean anything, but we just wanted to keep you guys updated with how they finished, even though there was forfeited matches that, essentially the games weren't played, so it's technically
yeah,
not fair. But we just wanted to keep you guys posted with that. So for the save percentage, you have Buggle from Germany, who finished with a .975 save percentage. Yald Wallstead, uh, with a 961. Oh my god, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name from Finland. Uh Marilanen, Marilanen, or I don't. Sorry for his pronunciation. Point 957. Sorry, 58. And then in fourth, you had Bednar, the Czech Republic goaltender, with a point 938 save percentage, and the guy who made the statement before from Slovakia, their starting goaltender, Latkosi, and he finished with a point 927 save percentage.
I think what what was interesting about this tournament too, and what I enjoyed too watching the few games that there was is I felt apart from Austria, which no, it's no disrespect to Austria. I'm just saying, uh, every team seemed competitive, right? Every team that
Yeah.
played
Except
seemed to be
Austria.
competitive, right? Germany looked competitive. Switzerland in the games that they played looked competitive. Czech Republic looked competitive. Like these teams all looked competitive. The only one that didn't was Austria. But even Austria, like, yes, they got outplayed by Finland and Canada. They got killed. But Austria still scored 2 goals against Canada. They still scored one against Finland. Like they still, yes, they weren't. They wasn't close games, but they still scored, right? And so that you have to look at that from that perspective and say that this tournament was like actually really really entertaining. So it sucks. It really sucks that it ended because of that. But there was a lot of, like, I honestly believed that Slovakia, based on how well they were playing, I honestly thought this team could definitely win a medal. Like I was like, oh, this team could definitely surprise people and win a medal.
Yeah,
Maybe
probably
not
like
a
a
gold medal, but
bronze.
like a bronze medal for sure.
There was a lot of teams that were surprising. You had Slovakia that was dealt a unlucky hand, unfortunately, with Juracek's injury and a suspension as well to one of their defensemen. I think his name it was Heretic, if I'm
Yes,
mistaken.
yes.
Um, so that was unfortunate for them. Germany was really surprising as well. Russia was underwhelming. Finland had this crazy line, which I'm going to get into in a couple of seconds. And Canada obviously coming into this tournament expecting to be the best team here. So for points, you have Perfetti, who finished first with 6, Bedard 5, McTavish 5, Power 5. So the top 4 essentially are all Canadians.
And
And
Shane Wright.
then no.
Yeah, but
uh and then the hottest line in this tournament, Lambert, 5 points, Helenis, 4, Kovinen, 4. So that's the best line in the tournament. And you have Michkov with 3, Blank from Germany, 3, and Bork from Canada, 3. So as you could tell here, it's really split between Canadians and Finnish, and then you have a Russian and a German. So I would have really liked to see Finland versus Canada in the finals, because I think they were the two best teams in this tournament.
well, yeah, of course. But I think also like I think it just like, it was such a fun tournament to watch. Finland looked good. Russia looked good. Russia looked mad, but like they were a team that I think could have woken up and gotten themselves out of it. Canada, obviously, they looked really, really good. Even the states had their moments as well. So it ended up being unfortunate, obviously, but like even for that, right? Like Canada obviously dominating the points charts, especially Perfetti, Power, Bedard as well. Those guys had really good starts to tournaments. Obviously, Shane Wright didn't have the start that he would have wanted, but I think for people writing off Shane Wright, I think it's way too early to do that. And the reason for that is because you can look at different comparisons, right? You look at a guy like Nathan McKinnon, who on his in his World Junior debut had 1 assist in 6 games and only had 1 point, and now he's one of the best players in the league. So the point that I'm trying to make is
Well, it's also during the season. He's not playing best.
no, but it's not. But what I'm trying to say is you can't judge based on the fact that okay, yeah, he only had 1 point in 2 games, right? Which is only 2 games. And yes, out of 11 goals, he should have had more points. Fine, but and even if this season he hasn't been that great, you can't write someone off that quickly because there's a lot of guys that end up having slow starts or don't end up having tournaments that you really expect them to have, and then they come into the NHL and they dominate. And sometimes it's just about development, sometimes it's just about
Oh,
progression.
listen, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I mentioned that in the last video. I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's gonna be going in the second round or anything. I just don't see him going first overall.
Yeah, he's gonna go first overall. I think you
I
will.
don't think so.
Okay, so we're gonna end this podcast with a couple of questions. So I want you guys, including myself, I'm gonna do the same thing as well, to name your MVP of this tournament, your favorite line in this tournament, your favorite goaltender, and essentially your biggest disappointment in this tournament. So I'm gonna start off with my MVP, and that is Connor Bedard at 16 years old, managing to score 4 goals and have 5 points, so including an assist. So finishing second behind Cole Perfetti. Um, Huge surprise, entering this tournament. We would have thought maybe he would have been able to, he was gonna produce a little bit, maybe struggle because he is at a disadvantage. For some people, they may consider this a disadvantage because he is younger and the other people are older, but he proved otherwise. He proved that he's potentially a generational talent who's going to be drafted in the 2023 NHL draft. And I also want to give credit to Michkov as well, who had a good tournament, scored 3 goals for Russia. He proved his worth as well. So those two guys, I see them duking out, coming closer to the 2023 NHL draft. Michkov, generational talent when it comes to scoring goals, in my opinion, and Bedard, overall, like fantastic player.
Chris, you want to go next? Or you want me to go for your
You could
MVP?
go. You could go.
Okay, well, my MVP, I'm gonna keep this nice, short, and simple. And I said it because when we did the prospects to watch, I said he was gonna be the best goalie. Jesper Wallstedt is my MVP. Uh, all I'm gonna say is he was the best player I think in this tournament. Yes, you could argue Bedard and Power and whatever, but he beat Slovakia on his own. He played really well against Russia, and he kept Sweden in it, in my opinion, because I think without him, Sweden doesn't even win one of those games. So he's my MVP. It's just there's just a no brainer on that. I think Wallstead in the 2 games that he played, he looked really really good. So that's mine. Chris.
My MVP is Connor Bedard. I mean, the guy's insane. 16 years old. The only one who scored 4 goals in a World Junior Games. The last one to do that was Wayne Gretzky. So I mean,
Well, no, last 16-year-old to score,
yeah,
four.
4 goals.
Because
Yeah,
he's not the last player to do it. There was Anthony Duclair did it, I think, a couple of years ago as
When
well. So
Gretzky did it against Czechoslovakia in
Czechoslovakia.
1977.
yeah, but he also
Yeah,
did it at like 16 years old. So that's why
Yeah.
that's what I'm
it-
saying. A lot of 60
yeah,
for a 16-year-old. It's
yeah.
pretty impressive. I mean, it was against Austria, but still, he had a couple of great. And you could tell just he's very how can I say this? Like he's very relaxed. I find when he has the puck, he doesn't do any
He's very comfortable at a young age, and he has
yeah.
fantastic hockey vision.
Honestly, I was debating between even Power or Lambert, but I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
with
My favorite. Speaking of Lambert, my favorite line in this tournament is actually not a Canadian line; it's a Finnish line. You have Lambert, Helenis, and Koivunen. These guys, instant chemistry from the start. They were unstoppable. They were a force, and honestly, I loved it. And you know, seeing Lambert playing consistent when a lot of scouts were saying that his game is inconsistent. This was a tournament that he proved everyone wrong, and honestly, like I have Lambert over Kamel now. Actually, after
Well,
watching this tournament,
I think we could all agree that that was the best line in the tournament. I think
yeah.
there's
That's pretty much unanimous.
like you could argue that maybe one of the Canada lines could be too, but like I think just in terms of like actually standing out, like I think Finland's line like of Lambert, Koivunen, and Hellenius, like those guys stood out in my opinion. Like it was very very like if it wasn't for those 3 guys, Finland don't even score goals. So like it's a little bit different. So I think we could all kind of agree that that
yeah.
line was the best line of the tournament.
My biggest disappointment is not actually Shane Wright; it's Kamel from the right winger for Finland.
You
Because
know what?
going into this tournament, I thought he was going to be the MVP, which I was wrong. And listening to people what they had to say about Lambert and how inconsistent his game was, and how consistent Kamel was, um, you know, I was expecting him to like have a great tournament, and I'm not even sure if he even had a point.
No, I don't think he did. My biggest disappointment. I actually have two, but so I'm going to name both. They're both goaltenders. One of them is Yaroslav Askarov of Russia. I expected a much better tournament out of him. In the
Yeah.
one game that he played, I don't think he was given much, or I don't think he did much. The other one, and I know he didn't play an actual game, but he kind of lost his job. Sebastian Casa.
Yeah,
And the reason
that's
why
unfortunate.
he's my disappointment, people say, "Oh, he's your disappointment," but he didn't play a game. Yeah, that's the reason why he was disappointing. The fact that he didn't get into a game in the World Juniors and lost out and became the third stringer, literally right like before the first game of the tournament, to me says a lot about him as a goalie, but also him as a character. And I think the fact of the matter is that he needs to figure himself out because yes, you could argue and say, oh, but World Juniors doesn't really matter and like he's gonna bounce back or whatever. But there's got to be a reason for him not playing. And I know that you could turn around and say, oh, well, he had a bad preliminary round game, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I get that, but he was the best. He's the most talented goalie going into this draft. He was the highest drafted goalie going into this draft, tied with Askarov. So for him not to play is a big red flag for me in terms of that. So that's why I would say it's the biggest disappointment because I would have loved to have seen him play, and the fact that he didn't just makes that whole situation worse.
Yeah, and you, Chris?
You already know what I'm gonna say.
Shane Wright.
Shane Wright is my
Yeah,
biggest. Listen, it's just because like there's so much hype going around him, and I think there's always hype around the guy who's gonna go first overall. But at least the guys that have been drafted so far, like he reminds me of like I guess no, like well, I mean they two play separate positions, but Darlene, Darlene, he came. It was like before he got drafted. I remember there was all this hype, like, oh my god, he's an amazing franchise defenseman, and like he's not really that crazy, you know. I
I
feel
Well,
like
mean,
I
well,
think it's
Buffalo has been picking it up this year, to be honest.
no, but I'm just saying, like I feel like they're overhyping some, like they're overhyping him. I feel like there's so many, like, listen, if I had the first overall pick, there'd be like 4 or 5 guys I would pick over him from the way I've seen him playing so far this year.
I
Yeah,
think
it's been a bad year for him.
I think it's a bit like I said. I think it's too early to say that. That's just me personally. That's because I don't like writing off prospects right away. And I know that maybe some people you look at you like, oh, they're not really first round caliber. You could argue
No,
with that.
I'm not saying he's not first round caliber. He's definitely in the top.
First
He's
overall caliber.
definitely he's definitely in the top. I would say top 10.
Yeah.
But definitely not first overall. I would put him more fourth or fifth. But
But like that's what I'm saying. Some people look at it and say, oh, like, oh, this guy's not first overall caliber or whatever. But I think what people have to understand is until you don't see them translated into the NHL or until you don't watch them play in the NHL, I think everything else and just projections and drafts, I think is just a little bit meaningless. I think you have to see what Shane Wright can do at the NHL level first before we can make any decisions or any assumptions as to whether
I
or
could
not
I
he.
could I could say confidently that if he gets drafted first overall, he's definitely not playing in the NHL the first year.
It's possible.
I'll be honest, I very, very much disagree. But anyways, we'll
Really,
see. We'll see what
I
happens.
mean, if
But
it's
I
his
very, very much.
decision, then yes. If he pulls an Owen Power, then
I don't think
yes.
he's gonna pull on power. I think he's just not gonna be ready. I
No,
think they're gonna just hold him off for another
I
year,
very, very much disagree.
unless it's a team like Arizona that desperately needs players. Then okay, but if it's like, let's
I'm
say,
telling you, I'll tell you
if
that
it,
right now.
If Montreal gets the first overall pick and they pick him, he's not playing the first year.
Oh, he is
I don't think
hundred
so.
percent,
It
hundred
it really
percent,
depends. It really depends
100%.
what the future GM of the Montreal Canadiens and Gordon agree on, if they want them to develop in the juniors or at the AHL level, or maybe just throw everybody on the Habs team and hope for the best and progress playing at the NHL level. We don't know what their plan is. They haven't announced it yet. They're still assessing things. They're still looking for a general manager. There's a lot of moving parts as we speak. There's going to be big changes coming in Montreal, and even Arizona, for example, is another contender to possibly draft Shane Wright at number one.
Well, see, it would
So
make sense if he plays there right away because if I'm not mistaken, if more than half their team's contract is expiring this season.
they're just going to go sign nobodies and slap them
Yeah, but
on the team.
look, the last first overall pick that didn't play was Owen Power, and that wasn't because he wasn't good enough. It's because he did that by choice.
Yeah, it
What
was
I'm
by
trying to
choice.
say is any guy who gets drafted first overall plays in the NHL right away. And the reason for that is not because it's just because that's how it is, right? That's how it's always kind of been. The only one that hasn't, there was a few, was Eric Johnson and Marc Andre Fleury, obviously Carey Price, obviously too. But and
Isn't
obviously
that
now
due
there was
to a
Owen Power.
lockout?
Huh?
Listen, to be honest, he reminds me of a player that the Habs drafted a long time ago. I've mentioned this in another
Sorry, Carey
video.
Price wasn't drafted first overall. My bad, he was drafted fifth. But still, my point
Yeah,
still
yeah.
stands. But anyways.
Top 10.
But I find he reminds me a lot of a player. He reminds him the way he plays. He reminds me of Michael McCarron, a better version of Michael McCarron. I find he doesn't. I'm sorry, but it's true.
Uh,
He's how
Oh,
tall?
Look,
He's a
everyone has
tall.
the right to their own
He's
first.
a tall
no.
center. He's not the best skater, Shane Wright. He's not crazy.
I think that's an over. I think
Well, we
you need
gotta
to look
stop.
at
We gotta
more
stop with the
highlights.
Shane Wright and Michael McCarron comparisons, bro.
Yeah,
Please.
Listen.
a lot of
That's
people are
Please.
not in agreement with that.
Please.
I'm
well, you
not.
know what? Well, you know what? Listen, I'm like when it happens, I'll
Hey,
be like,
It's
bro,
I
listen.
possible
told
he
you
could be
so.
disappointing.
And
It's
and
possible
and
he
you
could
know
be
if
disappointing.
he proves me wrong, I'd be like, okay, shit, I'm wrong. It's not the first time I'm wrong.
It's
But
possible that he could be a disappointing or underwhelming player. But I think it's just way, way, way too early to assess him and say that his potential it has declined and his value declined and he's not going to be a top three draft. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. Um, for me, whatever you do in the juniors and everything means nothing. When you get to the NHL level and you're able to play at that level, that's what means a lot to me, because that's the biggest stage of them all. If you're able to play at the NHL level, that's all that matters. That's the whole point. The whole point is to get to that point at that level and play the best hockey possible, and make a name for yourself. So if he gets to that level and he rips the league apart, where he does amazing, good for him. Mission successful. Mission accomplished. So if there's anything else you guys would like to add, also I wanted to also agree with you, Luca, that Wallstead was the best goaltender in this tournament. He played one game, but that game was
2 games.
heavily,
Played
heavily.
2 games.
He played 2 games.
Yeah, he played against Russia and he played against Slovakia.
Okay, okay, yeah. I thought one of the games were postponed, but I mean, the game
Yeah.
where he posted a shutout, fantastic. He carried that team to that win, and if it wasn't for him, they would have lost. Putting aside 48 shots and getting a shutout, that's fantastic. So he's my favorite goaltender. I don't know if you agree with that too, Pizzuto.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, perfect. So, guys, so this is the conclusion of our World Junior coverage. Unfortunately, it was cut short due to a cancellation because of the COVID-19. But we just want to say that we're going to be taking a couple of days off to reassess what we're going to be doing moving forward. But we're most likely to go back to doing why they so bad and videos, and starting why are they so good. So expect videos on the IIHF Ducks that have been surprising this year, the Florida Panthers, who had a fantastic offseason and doing amazing, Calgary Flames as well, that are surprising a lot of people, and the Minnesota Wild. And concerning why they so bad, we're thinking about doing a New York Islanders one. I know they missed a couple of games due to COVID at the start of the season, so we want to take our time at that and see maybe if they could bounce back. But if
You
they
know,
continue doing bad, then we're definitely gonna make a why they so bad video on
you know
them.
what I think. You know what I think we should do too. I think we should let like if obviously if the fans like comment and stuff, we should make the fans
Yeah.
decide
If you have any
what teams we
suggestions, you
should
want to see
talk about
anything,
because obviously we could talk about a lot of teams and stuff, and we obviously want to get back into that. So if there's teams that like you guys think, oh, we should talk about them, or we should address like their season and why like what's going on so far, like let us know for sure because we're definitely open to talking about as many teams as possible. Obviously, we did the Jets already, we did the Habs, we did the Philadelphia Flyers as well, Vancouver Canucks. So we've done some teams already, but if there's other teams that you guys might want to see that you guys think would be interesting to talk about, please let us know. We would love to, get your feedback and stuff on that too.
we just wanted to say, since this is our last video of 2021, crazy
Oh
journey
my
to
God,
get
it's true.
here. Very fortunate for you two. Uh, it's been 3 months we've been doing this, and
For
without all the followers and the support and subscribers on YouTube and followers on Instagram, we wouldn't be here without you guys. We've had a phenomenal start, exceeded expectations.
Yeah.
We're just three guys doing this, not only for fun, because we're very passionate and we love the sport. And, despite, the setbacks with the Olympic videos and World Junior videos, we always find a way to bounce back. And I really, and it shows that we have a good work ethic. And, obviously, there's a lot of people that tune in to watch our videos. So thank you so much. And we really appreciate it. Stay safe. And, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like our videos, recommend us to anybody that may be interested, and have a good end to a really bad year, 2021.
Hopefully it gets better.
Hopefully it
Happy
gets
New
better.
Year's.
Anyways, guys, Happy New
you.
Year. We're out.